You are listening to the IFH Podcast Network. For more amazing filmmaking and screenwriting podcasts, just go to ifhpodcastnetwork.com.
Welcome to the Successful Screenwriter Podcast, where we discuss anything and everything screenwriting. Here we interview successful screenwriters and filmmakers to find out just what it takes to make it in the industry. Welcome to the podcast. Oh my God, we have such an incredible guest, you guys. We have on screenwriter Philip Eisner. Philip, thanks for being with us.
Absolutely. I'm very glad to be here.
So you wrote this awesome film called Event Horizon, which is easily a cult classic and entirely holds up, because I actually watched it again today. I've seen this film several times. It holds up, sir. And I just want to kind of discuss the process, how you came up with it, what your motivations were and creating the characters. And we'll get into all that stuff. But before we really get into it, I want to kind of get your origin story of what led up to that big screenplay.
Wow. I mean, origin is a complicated thing. And I think one of the things, you know, if someone's had a difficult life in many ways, the origin story becomes very clear when you see people that have overcome adversity. And that makes it in some ways easy to understand the events that shape them. You know, I think of, I'm just taking Oprah Winfrey as an example because I think her life as a public figure is very well documented. And just had to overcome enormous hurdles on her way to achieve, you know,
right,
world status where her last name is optional. And the reason I point that out is because my journey was completely different. You know, growing up born in the 60s, growing up in the 70s, being told the world is my oyster, and it being largely true. Family wasn't wealthy, but had enough money to send me to a very good university without me needing a scholarship. When I got there, I didn't realize that we had money until every single one of my friends was on a scholarship, right, except me.
Yeah.
Right. So, you know, both my parents doted on me and loved me. And by the standards of the 1970s and early 80s, you know, weren't abused. Those standards have changed, but you know, nonetheless. And the reason I'm saying all of this is because so everything is perfect. I'm a white guy growing up in white guy pinnaclehood. Okay. And yet something is wrong. I don't know what's wrong, but something is wrong. There is this unconscious awareness that life is not this good and that this is a lie.
Okay.
And that leads you down the path to horror. I discovered Stephen King, you know, in high school. And I found Stephen King's fiction to be more truthful than the interactions I would have in a private, you know, I went to a really, really good, you know, private high school private school in Texas, which is a great school.
Yeah.
But everything is, you know, and again, growing up in Texas, which it isn't the South, it's its own thing.
Right.
But it's the same thing as everyone is polite. Everyone is friendly. And it's something that a lot of people on the East Coast don't necessarily get. I think Midwest kind of gets it, but it's like, well, why is everyone so polite in the South and in Texas? And it's like, because there's still the vestiges of what used to be called dueling culture.
Okay.
And that's why you're polite, because you don't know who's going to just fucking kill you.
That makes sense.
So you're polite. You always say the nice thing.
There's a level of fear there. Yeah.
Yeah. No, I've never gotten nervous at someone yelling at me in a bar. I have gotten nervous when the person who's upset gets quiet.
Okay.
And then walks out of the bar. And then I'm going out the back because it's like, he's going to his truck. Right. And I know what he has in his truck.
Okay.
No, I'm out of here. So the idea of horror, what I think draws a lot of people to horror, is just you're trying to it gives voice, it gives form to sort of nameless dread.
Right.
And I think that that's something that I experienced because I couldn't put a name to it. Whereas, for example, my father was a war refugee. My father never understood why I was so into horror. He hated horror, but he lived through the Blitz.
Right.
He lived through the family literally running for their lives in Eastern Europe. He lived through the Blitz. He lived through war. He only wanted comedies. I mean, that's what he liked.
Right, because he was familiar with it.
Yeah, it's like, wait, I don't need horror. But also to him, horror had a face.
Yeah.
He knew what horror was. This is horror.
Yeah.
And I'm kind of like, Dad, it's you've made everything fine. You've made this perfect environment to keep the children safe and keep the wolves away and all this, and but the wolves are still there.
Yeah.
And then you start digging beneath the surface, and it's like, oh yeah, no, do monsters exist? Of course they exist. And we tell our children monsters don't. And then it's like, okay, step away from that. And it's like, let's go to Leopold and Loeb. Let's go to Ted Bundy. Let's go to the guy who built the hotel for the Chicago World's Fair.
Oh yeah.
The
White
Devil
City.
in the White City.
Yeah.
Devil in the White City is the book.
Holmes was his name.
Yes. Monsters are absolutely real.
Yeah.
Absolutely. So, I guess at some point, it's the whole thing of the old Nietzschean thing, don't stare into the abyss because the abyss gazes back also. And I found, I guess around 10 or 13, I've found myself in a staring contest with the abyss, and we haven't stopped yet. It's like, I don't know who's going to win. It's like, I'm like, bring it. And the abyss is going, come on. I'm like, let's go. It's like, it's just this constant escalation between me and the abyss. And the abyss goes, oh yeah. Oh yeah. Oh yeah. Well, here's irreversible, motherfucker. And I'm like, irreversible. I'll just watch it like this. I don't even have to look away.
So that's interesting. So you've pierced this veil kind of into almost the society of putting on of niceties, of hiding behind this pleasant smile and this false sense of security, which is an awesome way of using horror to talk about that commentary, because it can discuss it in a fantastical sort of way.
And have fun. It doesn't devolve into people going, well, that's the advantage of this political person because he just swipes away all the bullshit. And you kind of go, yeah, the bullshit's kind of what's keeping our culture together. It's what keeps society together.
Yeah.
Like, we kind of need this bullshit. But it's like, but I don't want to have a political argument. I mean, actually, even now, I have friends who are politically so far away from where I am. And it's like, still friends with them. And I'm like, to quote an Altman film, it's like, how can you still be friends with them? It's like, we went fishing together. It's as simple as that.
It's
like,
true though.
These are
they're people.
Right. They're people. They're not just,
they are not their political party. They are not their political views. They are people. You just have to pierce that veil and find the humanity. And unfortunately, I don't want to get into too much social media stuff, but social media stuff kind of allows more of that false sense of security there, where people can say whatever they want and they don't have to worry about, as you mentioned, the dueling culture.
Right. Oh yeah. Oh my God. I remember when Event Horizon came out, it came out to very mixed reviews, and one person specifically singled me out and the dialogue, and this was back in the day, and said, if he ever met me, he was going to beat me like a dog in the street.
What?
And again, this is exactly, and remember, this isn't the 90s. This isn't like when this is pre-Facebook. This was pre-whatever.
Yeah, it's like 97.
So this was on his, like, he was like an
blog?
amateur. He was like a semi-pro movie reviewer blog type thing.
Yeah.
But it was semi-pro enough that, I mean, I don't think it was for a paper, but it was getting
on your radar. Okay.
Right.
Yeah.
So I sent him my home address and said I would so that was me. It's like, he called me out and I'm like, anytime you'd like to meet and discuss my film, in the street, I would love to do so. I look
my
forward to your
goodness.
response. He never did. And of course, now it's like, now I'm old and less confident of my ability to
Philip, the
kick
thing
people's
is,
asses.
yeah, but Philip, the thing is, I ended up doing that to a guy. I'm not even kidding. A guy called me
shit.
weekly. Yeah, he called me weekly and would threaten me every day. Like, it was this habitual thing. And I would just listen and I'd hang up the phone. And then one day, I think I had a bad day. And he called me up and he went through his habitual rant of he's going to do all these things to me. And I said, you know what? You've got my number. I'll be outside waiting for you. Obviously, you know where we live. We're going to do this thing. And I hung up the phone. And he never called back. So, I get it. I've been there. I understand.
Yeah. I mean, it does get...
People
does get frustrating.
Yeah, they don't realize, like, it's easy to type in critiques to a keyboard. Like, I do a film analysis every week. I do it with Christy Lee Lussier. We do a film analysis, and we analyze the film. We don't critique the film because nothing is perfect. No screenplay is perfect. No movie is perfect. Why sit there and tear it apart?
The Shining is perfect. I'm just saying. There's a couple that have come really close. Alien, with the exception
Alien is so good.
Yeah, with the exception of the final shot of the alien where you can see it's like, oh, it's a really skinny guy in a suit when he's outside.
Yeah.
Like that.
In space, yeah.
But literally, one shot.
Yeah, it is good. All right, so Event Horizon somehow sprung into your mind. And I've heard people talk about how they feel it was inspired by the, eldritch horror of unseen demonic creatures from beyond and things like that. Was that ever in your mind, any kind of a Lovecraftian theme when you were building this? Okay.
Sure. I mean, so there's a lot of influence on it. So the basic idea was haunted house in space.
Okay.
And I wanted to do, literally, my pitch to Larry Gordon and Lloyd Levin started off as, it's The Shining in space.
Okay.
They're like, that's fantastic.
I can see that. That's a great pitch.
And then they said, well, give us more. And I'm like, crap, let me think about it. So I had to go off and, I tend to be a bit of a hard science nerd.
Okay.
I'm very pleased that Paul put up with me as much as he did when we were putting the film together. Because
Paul W.S. Anderson, director?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. He was wonderful to work with, really, really gracious, but he would also be like, no, this will be cool. And I'm sitting there going like, but he's like, and there's clouds outside the window. I'm like, there can't be clouds outside the window. He's like, why not? And I'm like, well, that's not a decaying orbit. Then it's actually entering it's burning up in the atmosphere.
Well, he got the clouds.
And he would he got his clouds.
He got his clouds.
And it does exactly what he wanted, which is I want to evoke these classic claustrophobic, haunted house films.
He does, yeah.
Like, so he's making a decision based on a visual and a symbolic.
Yeah.
And I'm sitting there being the science nerd going, but it doesn't work that way, but you can't do that. and I find myself still doing that, which is, but at any rate, to me, it was one of those things of like, well, how does this happen? And then the gravity drive became in, and still the thing that I always find compelling is that people say, oh, so the ship went to hell. And it's like, if you like.
Well, let's discuss that. I mean, because the great thing so in The Shining, the mansion is its own entity, right? And the set piece is a character, and very much so in Event Horizon. Event Horizon, the ship itself, is a character. It is its own set piece, which is really difficult to pull off in a film and in a screenplay, but obviously you convey that really well. And I love the fact that when and sure, some of this was production based, but just looking at the gravity drive, it looks like it's from Hellraiser. It looks like it came out of the Cube. It just looks demonic. And I was like, whoa, that really hits
so gorgeous.
Yeah.
It's gorgeous. I wish I'd come up with that. That is all credit to, I believe, the production designer, which is Bennett. All hail. I can't take any credit for
hell of a job.
The way it ended up looking. I remember seeing it and just, my jaw hitting the floor. Like, it's such a I mean, one of the greatest things. I'm sure other writers have talked about this, like why so many writers become directors. It's because that was made might have been good, but it wasn't what was in their head.
Right.
But one of the pleasures of being a screenwriter and not directing and not doing anything else is those moments when you're looking at your film or you're looking at what they're doing and it's better. And
That's
they do
cool.
happen where it's like, I thought X and Y and Z, and what I'm now seeing is exponentially
You're right.
more amazing.
That's why this is a collaborative art, man. That it's not just all us. It's not just all the director. Everybody comes in together and makes this really cool piece of art. And so you teased me here. So you said, that the Event Horizon might not have gone to hell. So what is, as the writer of this, what is the interpretation there?
Well, my attitude here, and and not to do a shameless plug because it's not out yet.
Plug away, sir.
But I think the TV series is also, and again, it's not this distinctly, but it also is riffing on this idea, which is the way I always thought of it was that the human mind evolved to experience time and space a very specific way. We experience linear time. Does that mean time is linear? Dunno.
Right, of course.
In the same way that we say time and space, and as Einstein proved, they're just one damn thing. It's a one thing that we experience multiple ways.
Okay.
We experience a four-dimensional universe, and there's evidence that there's a lot more than 4 dimensions.
Right.
A lot of evidence. Like someone, this is an aside, but you may cut for shortness. Someone did an analysis of bee dances, because the bee dances, how they communicate.
Yes.
And no one could ever figure out what it did until someone who's got a degree in math and is crazy enough to do this, which means it's a very advanced degree in math, analyzed the bee dances, and the bee dances work perfectly in 6 dimensions.
It's messed up.
Yeah, it's just like, what the? Yeah, but it's like, well, if you're a bee, you're small, and again, so there's stuff that's going on that we have no comprehension of.
Right.
So the idea that you're going to fold space, that's going to have an effect on the human mind. It may not be evil with the capital E, but it will destroy the mind.
Okay.
Human brain can't comprehend it. I would say it's the equivalent to if anyone's ever had, not that anyone would ever do acid or smoke marijuana.
You're talking like ayahuasca stuff here?
I don't know. I've heard about such things. I personally. But the point is that anytime you mess with your head, there's the possibility of a bad trip. This is a bad trip.
Okay.
It's one thing to see a Gaspar Noé film that's 2 hours long, and you can handle it because it's a movie.
Mm-hmm.
But I think if you were watching a Gaspar Noé film and it was on a loop and it was your reality,
Gotcha.
I think the strongest person would break.
Yeah.
And that's kind of what, manipulating space-time could be as simple as putting in a lens distortion and giving you nausea, right?
Right.
Or you start seeing ghosts, you start seeing things from the past, you start seeing things from the future, you start seeing everything. If you treat time as holographic instead of being linear, now you're experiencing everything at the same time.
Interesting. So,
and it would drive you mad.
It would drive you insane. Yeah, because there's hints in there that the people that are died are still, their souls are trapped in the other dimension. There's hints that the Event Horizon itself is possessed by a different dimension. So it's multi-layered. Right.
And again, it's like, and this goes to the thing of the ship being evil with a capital E. Can it be seen as being evil with a capital E? Well, from a human perspective, absolutely.
Right.
In the same sense that a hungry tiger who is old and learned to hunt humans is an evil tiger to a human. But what's the tiger doing?
Right. It's doing its
I'm
job.
hungry.
Yeah.
I'm hungry. I'm a ship. I wasn't sentient. I went through this thing. Now I'm sentient. And oh, there's a feeling in my body, and it's ow. And oh, there's these little things running around me, which are
Right.
energy sources. Oh, if I make them afraid, oh, that feels better. Oh, oh, they're all gone. I need more. Where did they come from? Well, I'll go back to where they came from. I'll pick up some more. I'll see if there's some more. Oh, some more came. Oh, good. Oh, this just, it's yummy in my tummy.
This is a great breakdown of Event Horizon from the ship's perspective.
Yeah, no, it's like the ship's not evil.
Yeah.
You heard Weir. She's beautiful.
Interesting.
She's beautiful, like a, she's gorgeous.
It's a matter of perspective. It's a matter of perspective. Yeah. I got you. Yeah. So the Weir character was fascinating because he's a Sam Neill plays him. Yeah. So he's a broken man, right? Who ignored his wife and she took her. I'm sorry, guys. This is spoilers. If you haven't seen Event Horizon, first of all, shame on you.
That's also it was in 1997. If you were going to seen it, you would have seen it by now.
It's so good. It holds up. So she takes her life and that haunts him. And we learn that later on, which is a really nice revelation. And so where everyone else are tortured by their past, like Lawrence Fishburne and the doctor and her child, him not so much. He's pretty much all in. He kind of takes the promise that the ship offers and almost becomes like I'd say like an avatar of the ship.
Yeah, in fact, I was thinking of the shining example, and it's like we have our Lloyd character, and our Lloyd character starts off as, this beautiful, mysterious dead woman.
Right.
And there's a handoff between the two of them. Hand off, eyes out, whatever,
Well, let's talk about that. Yeah. So, I mean, it makes a lot of sense if the Shining is the template here. What is the fascination with the eyes? So they're ripping out the eyes. I'm thinking see no evil, but obviously you probably have something more going on there.
In all honesty, it's one of those things that, and this happens, I think, more than writers will try to admit. A lot of times writers will go like, well, obviously toward the eyes out was a reference to the Oedipal complex and
right.
blah, blah, blah.
Yeah.
The truth is, I was looking for a self-destructive act.
Okay.
That would keep him present. He can't kill himself like everyone else. I want him to become the ship.
Gotcha.
He becomes the avatar for the ship. So he needs to do something extreme.
Oh, like an Odin type of a thing, ripping the eye out, sacrificing the eye. Oh, okay.
Right. Which is funny. I didn't think of that, but that is actually a symbolic thing that was closer. But a lot of it, again, some of the choices are made literally because they're disturbing. And so it had to be, and it had to be this. And then after I'd already made the decision for him to rip his eyes out, then it progressed from there. And a lot of this also comes in the development. So it's like he tore his eyes out, but I think it was Paul who came up with him stitching them up.
That's messed up.
And again, it's through the development process. I don't know if where we're going, we don't need eyes to see.
Yeah.
I don't know if that's in the original draft or if that's in a rewrite.
Yeah. Well, he says that line and then immediately starts playing with the computer console like he can see it, even though he has no eyes. So the giveaway there is like, he's already seeing through the ship somehow, which is kind of freaky.
Yeah. Well, and also I love, and it's that thing is like, well, is the ship letting him see?
Exactly.
Does he know the ship so well that he's home? I mean, and one of the things about horror, I think in good horror, okay, so this is a weird analogy. I think if someone had to say, what's the difference between a horror film and a thriller film? I would say that a thriller, even though it may have supernatural overtones, everything has to line up.
Right. Yeah, it's the chase and it's the mystery. Yeah, of course.
But everything has to be true. So you can interpret Silence of the Lambs through a thriller lens.
Makes sense.
or through a horror lens. I mean, my favorite version of Silence of the Lambs, it's like, oh, it's an FBI agent who's trying to catch a werewolf, but she needs a vampire's help to do it.
That's a great.
And when you think of it, well, he feeds on people's pain. That's why he became a psychiatrist.
Right.
He's a werewolf who's trying to change their skin.
No, that's a great analogy.
Right. So, well, and it works. But the reason it's a thriller is because everything lines up. This is set in the real world. There's nothing supernatural about it.
Right.
In a weird way, the minute things can be both things at the same time, where you go, is it this or that? And the answer is yes.
Okay.
And the rational mind is going, no, it can't be one.
Right.
Again, The Shining, it's like
you're instilling some conflict within the audience and demanding a leap of faith.
Well, it's a leap of faith, but also you're pulling the rug out from under how the world works. Okay. You were the caretaker here, Mr. Grady, i.e., I understand what's going on. You're a ghost. And Grady's response, no, you are the caretaker.
Yeah.
You've always been the caretaker. I should know. I've always been here. And then it's like you're sitting there going, that makes no sense, but it is uttered and stated as an absolute fact.
Right.
And now the audience is like a ghost. Oh, this is the ghost of the guy who killed his family. We can get our head around.
Yeah.
But now we're somewhat paralyzed in doubt.
Yeah.
And the construction of it becomes very important when you try to do it's any film, but horror films I think are the only ones that actually make this effort. If a horror film does this in the first act, you destroy the film. And the reason you destroy the film is because now things don't make sense and everyone's going like, that's stupid.
No, that's yeah.
But if you can delay it into the latter half of the second act, you can start bending. In fact, my biggest problem, and this was, and I really, this is a film that I like, so I feel comfortable giving some negative response. My biggest problem with Hereditary, which on one hand is it's an absolute symphony of horror, and
right.
the visuals, the photography, and everything is so good. But when she threw the book in the fire and her husband suddenly exploded into flame, I was just...
This podcast is brought to you by TheSuccessfulScreenwriter.com, where you can find instructional books, videos, courses, and screenplays of Hollywood's biggest hits to download. As an added bonus, visit www.TheSuccessfulScreenwriter.com to download The Guide for Every Screenwriter for free. Yes, free. Available exclusively at TheSuccessfulScreenwriter.com. Now, back to our show.
And I had to say that as a writer, like, even though I loved the visuals that transponded,
right,
I was lost at that. Like, I was completely disengaged in the story. I was now in you're making it up as you go along.
Right.
Because there's nothing here that set up the tie. There was no tie between the book and the husband.
No, you have to foreshadow it, man. You have to set it up. There's no payoff otherwise.
Right. And what frustrates me is when I look at a film that I really like, and I'm like, I see films that I want to love. I had a similar reaction with The Last Exorcism, the found footage film.
Okay.
Where I thought it was as perfect an example of that genre you could have. And then in the last moments, it went for a twist. And I'm like, you didn't need a twist. I didn't need, why are you going for a twist here?
I always wonder if those are producer notes, man. I always wonder if those are producer notes. They throw it in, give me a twist, and they kind of twist the.
You never know.
You never know. But you're really talking about the psychological aspect of horror, which is great because that needs to be included in a quality horror film. And I think of something like The Lighthouse, for instance, with Pattinson. That is foreshadowing. It's artistic. It has moments scary, and then it shows the evolution, the devolving of humanity, in a really great way. And then it speaks about all kinds of things, about toxic masculinity, all kinds of cool things. And you can throw that into horror and still have a solid script. You don't just have to have people tearing people apart. And I think that's what you've nailed in Event Horizon.
Oh, thank you very much. It's one of the things that was, and for anyone who's an aspiring horror writer, I don't know if it's been in and out of print, but you've got to pick up Stephen Mckean's Dance Macabre, which he wrote years and years ago, but it was his nonfiction book on horror films and horror literature. Right. And it is an absolute required reading, but he's talking about his own work. And he says his goal is to create dread.
Yes.
If he can't create dread, he'll scare you. And if he can't scare you, he's not proud. He's going to gross you out. It's like you have all
these trifecta.
No, but it's true. It's like it's one of the things that I've always argue. Whenever we get, and this happens in any sort of post-production sequence, or rather, once a film is greenlit, everyone is rightly so sitting there going, it's one thing to spend X amount of money on writers to develop a script, but now that we're actually spending money on the actors and the cast, there's a tremendous pressure on everyone involved. And so everyone suddenly starts questioning everything. And there's this huge concern that the audience won't get it and the audience won't understand. The audience won't get it. The audience won't understand. And I'm not proud of saying this, and this is probably trigger warning, culturally inappropriate. My response is always, do we have a decapitation? Do we have gore? Do we have this? Do we have nipples? Do we have a butt? Because the whole thing is, and I'm using Event Horizon as an example. We have spaceships.
Right.
We have buckets of gore. We have a very sexy topless woman. Yes, she has no eyes, but she's sexy, and she's not wearing a top. The people who aren't, well, not the people, the guys who aren't going to get this are going to love this film anyway. Why? Because we're blowing people up real good. Cool spaceship. Look at them titties.
Oh my goodness.
They're happy. Let's not worry about whether they understand it or not, because by the time you get the kids in the back row of class who are throwing gum at the physics teacher,
right,
to understand, you've lost everyone else.
So it's not a matter of trying to dumb down the script or anything like that. It's adding elements at the time that would increase the appeal demographically.
Absolutely. And well, a great example, actually, and this is culturally appropriate. I remember when The Matrix came out. And it was such an event when it was huge. Oh, yeah. And so in local LA, it's actually getting coverage from the lines around the block and blah, 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 because everyone wants to see The Matrix. And they interviewed a guy on local TV. And they're like, oh, so you love The Matrix? He's like, yeah, man, it's my third time. It's just like, this is the coolest film you'll ever. So he'd seen it 3 times. And then the reporter goes, so what is The Matrix? Oh, man, I don't know. And I'm like, there is a scene in that film. There's a scene in the film where Lawrence Fishburne goes, the Matrix is a system of control designed to turn a human being into this. And he holds up a battery.
Yeah.
And they even have a joke in the film, Copper Top. It's like, they were so, and it's one of the best exposition scenes in history. They're just saying, this is what the entire second act of that film, the first half of the second act. It's 30 minutes of exposition. This is what the Matrix is. This is what the room is. That's what that whole kung fu, that kung fu sequence, that's disguised exposition.
Of course.
It's great.
Yeah.
Here's a guy, and he's seen it 3 times. What's the exposition? Oh, no, man. It's like, what is it? It's kick-ass action.
It's fighting, yeah.
It's the prettiest man on earth and the prettiest woman on earth in tight black clothes kicking ass.
Right.
And I'm not talking, okay, if it sounds like I'm talking down, it's because I am. But at the same time, I want people who are sitting in the back row of the classroom throwing gum at the physics teacher to have a good time when they go see my movie or any movie.
Right.
So I may be talking down now, but that doesn't mean it's like, well, I don't want to, I'm not making movies for you. It's like, no, movies are really expensive. I want as many people to have a good time. And frankly, the only sin to me is being boring. Like,
yeah, that makes sense.
Like if you make a bad film, but it's bad and it's The Room bad, pat yourself on the back. You have brought joy to the world.
Yeah, because they'll find entertainment in that. But if you write something pretentious that nobody gets and you can't entertain them in the process, then you've lost everybody anyway. Yeah. No, I get what you're saying.
Yeah. I just saw, and it's funny because this doesn't really count because it's intended to be campy.
Okay.
But one of my favorite films of recent time, and I admit it, it's like, and it's this big trip down nostalgia lane for me. Psycho Gorman.
I just interviewed him.
Laughed my ass off. It was just so much fun, and it was such an homage. Yeah, and it's kind of like, and someone goes like, "Well, what is it?" And it's like, okay, so it's kind of Power Rangers.
Yes,
it's Power Rangers meets Gwar.
I just had the writer director on the show. His name is Steven Kostansky, and he described it as absurdly awesome. And I was like, "Yes, that is your movie."
That's totally it.
It's so good.
It was just fun. So, I mean, that's a bad example, but there are films that are done. I mean, that's why I'm like horror films. Yeah. Horror films are either really scary or they're really funny. I think the hardest genres are comedy and drama, because if you make a drama and it doesn't land, it's boring. And if you make a comedy and it doesn't land, it's boring.
Right.
Go ahead. Action, and if it doesn't land, that's a comedy.
Yeah. No, I could see that. I want to ask you something though, because a lot of central characters in films they always have big, huge flaws, and they're spending the whole time to get over their flaws. And Lawrence Fishburne is the central character in this film. He plays the captain. He's stoic. He's steadfast. He's smart. He's calm. He seems perfect, and it's almost like the ship understands that, and it's like, how do I break this guy? And it spends the whole movie really, really trying to break him. I actually really love that, because here we have a character who is strong, who doesn't start out necessarily weak, but he has a dark secret. And I really like how you pulled that off.
Oh, that is, I mean, thank you. But I have to hand that one to the performer and to Paul. Like, they nailed it. And one of the reasons and this isn't from modesty, this is one of these things that happens in production. We had an effect in the script called the Burning Man. This was Edmund Corrick.
Right.
That didn't work. Like, the effect just didn't work, which is why when we finally get to see Edmund Corrick, you're seeing just a glimpse of him, and it's just the actor in makeup with like some fake fire on him.
Okay.
But originally they built an articulated skeleton, and it was going to be sort of a series of they were trying to do a shot similar to, I don't know if you remember from Interview with the Vampire, but when Lestat gets his throat cut, and there's that pull back around, and he sort of, all the blood drains out and he desiccates.
Right.
And what that was a motion control shot of several dummies and it was a very intricate motion control shot involving a bunch of things to do it. Obviously, this is before VFX were particularly advanced.
Yeah.
And the idea was to do kind of the same thing, but they had an articulated skeleton that was hollow and had gas vents in it. And so the skeleton itself was a flaming skeleton, and that was going to be composited, combined with the actor, combined with flame elements. And we were in production, and Paul came back, and I remember when his face was, no pun intended, ashen, and he's like, "It looks bad." And he's like, I'm like, what do you mean the skeleton looks bad? We can't use it.
Okay.
And it's just, and then it was like, well, maybe in post. And he's like, this isn't a post that, like, he's already thinking ahead. It's like, it's not the sort of thing that we'll be able to fix the fundamental issue with this in post. And then it became a thing of, well, we'll have a flash of a guy.
Yeah.
We can have a guy in the distance in a burn suit. Like, we can still have a flaming person rising out of the water.
Yeah.
But we can't do any of the close-up. We can't, suddenly it's like all these things that we had to change around. And
so were you doing an onset rewrite then?
This was the change they made. I was on set for maybe the first week of production.
Okay.
And then I was hanging around doing like set revisions I was hanging around, but Andy Kevin Walker came on and did, a polish, which, he didn't get credit for, but he did like some really great stuff.
Okay.
And then they had me rewrite him because they wanted a continuity of voice. They wanted to make sure the characters were the same.
Yeah.
So I wish I think they're very cognizant of hurt egos, etc. I wish I'd been able to sit in the room, because Andy Kevin Walker wrote Seven. And when you said there aren't any perfect films, that was the third on my list. I think Seven is actually a perfect film.
Cool.
I don't know why none of the perfect films I mentioned are comedies or romances. It's I don't know why.
They're perfect. Yeah. They're perfect for you.
Yeah, exactly. But anyway, I would have loved to just like, he's rewriting your film. It's like, good. It's Andy Kevin Walker. Go.
Right.
Do your thing,
yeah,
man.
of course.
Can I watch you rewrite my film? But that particular beat, I was not on set I was in set when we found out it wasn't going to work.
Okay.
But I wasn't there when they found the solution. And I flown out and they were doing edits, and I was coming up with some wild dialogue. And there was a beat in the rough edit, which is actually in the final film. And it's when, this used to be a thing of where you actually see the Burning Man. But now it was like Miller's walking through the corridors and he just hears Cork's voice, like, help me.
That was good.
Help me. Don't leave me. And then he goes, it's all in your head. It's all in your head. And he leans his head against the bulkhead, and you have that.
Yeah. The quick cuts.
And that, it's that thing of, I wrote the script. So there's so many of the jump scares. I'm like, yeah, that worked.
Coming.
That worked. Ooh, that's good. That one kicked me out of my seat.
Awesome.
That one, I was literally one of those, like, the Monty Python routine of the whee, they just fall out of the chair. I was like that. I was so, and I'm not a huge fan of jump scares, like, to rely on as like, ooh, we gotcha. That one was a jump scare, but it was so rooted in character.
Yeah, it was unexpected.
And again, right, and it was brilliant, and it came from the fact, it's kind of like, again, our shark didn't work.
Yeah.
And this is an advantage of like, well, maybe it wasn't such a bad thing that the shark didn't work.
It made it even better.
Yeah, because it's like once again, the more you see the monster, the more time you have to see the zipper.
Exactly. Oh my God, what a great point. I love that. So are you working on converting Event Horizon into a TV show? Is that what's going on?
I am not involved.
Okay.
In the adaptation, there is an adaptation going on. I'm spacing on the name of the guy who's doing it.
Okay.
But if you IMDb him, his current writing credits are like the Matt Reeves Batman film.
Oh, cool.
And he's got directing credits also out the wazoo. He's wildly talented. And I have been told his take, and his take is mind-blowing. It's one of those things of, there's that thing of, there's always that thing of like, oh, I want it, it's mine.
Yeah, it's your baby.
And can't I? Then he's like, well, he's doing this. And you're like, oh, holy fuck. Yeah, do that. It's really, really cool. So with all of these, it's like, it's good film, good television. It's weird to say this as an atheist, but it's like, great films and televisions are made by God. And it's like, you're an atheist. It's like, yeah, but they're made by God. It's like, you can do everything you can to make your films not suck.
Right.
Like, all the craft goes into making them not bad. But making them great, that's hard to control. It's sort of like, when I think of like, what's the most amazing moment, cinematic moment, in the past 20 years, I'm like, oh, that's easy. It's the portal scene from Endgame. And someone goes like, what makes that the most amazing scene? It's like, that's a decade.
Yeah, it's 10 years of payoff.
That's a decade of films.
Absolutely right.
Building up towards this moment, and it works.
Oh, yeah.
So works. Especially, I mean, obviously for everyone all over the world. I mean, this has been, what did the Queen say that one year? Anno Horribilis. It's like, this has just been like 2020. And we're still kind of in it.
Yeah.
Was like, it was the worst. And I would find myself not watching Endgame, not going and watching it my copy. I'd go to YouTube and I'd look up Endgame portal scene audience.
Yeah.
So I could watch.
Oh, wow.
And just remember, because I remember seeing it in the theater. First of all, it started with the hammer.
When he picked up the hammer, dude, come on.
So first of all, people were standing. My audience, and I was one of them. We're just on our feet.
Oh yeah, I was yes.
And then we settled down. Fantastic. And then it was, and after that, it's like, that was the only time I think until. And then the portals. But then after the portal scene, the reason there weren't more people standing up all the time is because we'd be up and down like popping up. But it's just like, Clint, give it to me. And it's like, yes. Yeah. Like every single moment.
It was so good. Well, I mean, you got Sam saying to Cap, on your left, and then he flies in and you're just like, oh my God, this movie is beautiful. Yeah, no, I'm 100% with you.
Oh, and Mr.
We're geeking out.
and then I got all dusty, and then I'm going to start crying if I do the whole thing.
It was so good, dude.
Yeah. Oh,
all right. Did you get to see WandaVision yet?
No, I haven't.
No spoilers. Well, you can binge it now. It's out.
I know.
You need to binge it. Yeah, absolutely. But then message me afterward.
I'm catching up on the Expanse. I'm catching up on the Expanse now. See, so it's like, I'll tell you, it's wonderful being able to. Oh my God, yeah. So
I had to buy the books for my wife.
Do they have the graphic novel? I think they do, don't they?
No, no. I had to buy. My wife had to buy her 9 books.
Well, as long as they're well written, I mean, that's great.
Oh yeah,
that's the most important thing.
I know, because
it has an ending.
Yes.
That's like, if you say 9 books, it's a 9-book series. I'm like, oh, fuck you. You're just this is someone who's just like padding this shit out. It's like, I'm not going down that road again.
Well, she's deep into it, man.
All right.
So we got distracted for most of the episode. So was there a Lovecraftian theme specifically? Did you work in stuff from Hellraiser? You were influenced by The Shining, which is, now that you say that, obvious, and I can't believe I never even caught it, which tells me how good you were at making this thing original.
Thank you very much. And answer, yes. So Lovecraft, the horror that happens off the page,
right?
It's all about the human reaction. But I've grown up reading Lovecraft. One of the weird things that's, when people have asked me, is like, your description of space-time and how it drives people crazy. It sounds a lot like Warhammer 40K universes, like that an influence. And I'm like,
or Cthulhu.
Not directly. Well, but the thing is, it is Cthulhu, it is Warhammer, but Warhammer 40K is influenced by Lovecraft, and Warhammer 40K, I believe. I mean, I have the 1987 original Warhammer 40K rulebook. Wow. I wargamed for 5 years, playing Warhammer 40K. I did Eldar and Chaos Marines. Those were my contingent.
My kid plays Space Wolves.
Okay, there you go.
There you go.
So when you talk about influences, it's like, the influence was absolutely there. Did I make a conscious lift from 40K? No. Did I make a conscious lift from Lovecraft? Yes. In the original script, there was a vision of going through the gate, and it was a sluggish, oily sea with tentacular creatures.
Gotcha.
Under a dying red star.
Gotcha.
So it was Lovecraftian in that sense. There is Hellraiser. Again, I'd seen Hellraiser. I didn't think of the box.
Right.
Did it? But when we went into the development of the script with Paul, we were screening Hellraiser, and he was saying the box, this box, our drive needs to be like this box. It needs to the lament configuration. It needs to unfold and move. And I was like,
that's a good.
And my response was, I wish I could say, oh yes, and it will be a sphere with spikes. But my response was just like, it was like, cool.
Yeah.
It's like it's a thing that does a thing. Guys figure it out, and of course they come up with what they come up with.
But he's brilliant. He's done a ton of work, man.
Yeah, he's like from the laser grid Chop-O-Matic on up. Paul is he's fun. He makes fun movies, and it's one of those things that I don't think people say a lot or enough about directors. He is one of the nicest people to work with.
That's awesome.
So
that's awesome. All right, so you have partnered up with Greg Hurwitz, and you guys are co-writing. What are you guys working on right now?
Now we're doing a revision on our spec script Sabine, which we sold to Screen Gems, and
cool.
We have Jesus Colmenar is attached to direct. And if you don't recognize his name immediately, he directed Money Heist on Netflix.
Well, congratulations.
And he is the shiznit. He's great.
That's awesome.
Yeah. So that's what we're working on now. So we're collaborating on our collaboration. But yeah, Greg and I actually first worked together. We worked on a rewrite for the Thomas Crown Affair 2.
Oh,
which didn't get made. And what happened is I'm spacing on who wrote the rewrite.
Okay.
This is like a writer thing. So this is like, again, insight into the industry. They had a fantastic rewrite for the sequel.
Okay.
They did not need any dialogue. They did not need any story. They approached a bunch of writers to pitch ideas for how to punch up the heists.
Okay.
They felt the heists were too, again,
hokey.
Well, not necessarily hokey, but it's a thing of, the writer whose name I can't remember is fantastic with character and he's fantastic with story, but he's not necessarily an action guy. He's not necessarily keeping up with the latest sort of technology.
Gotcha.
He's not a hacker. I'd written, my first script was a cyberpunk script. So I was all up on, hacking and freaking phones and doing all kinds of that technology. Greg's, super smart about the human engineering of how to get past different things. And what happened is, I pitched something and they talked to a bunch of writers, and then the exec on the Jeff Kleeman, who's super smart guy. And in all honesty, one of the only people I can think of who could have done this, because if anyone, he is just a master at dealing with ridiculous egos, and anyone who has been able to survive in Hollywood has a ridiculous ego. It's a requirement, because if you didn't, you would just go like, this is bullshit. So you kind of have to have blind spots where your ego is concerned. Anyway, Jeff goes like, and it was specifically to us, he's like, I really like this version of that you pitched for that heist. And I like this version that Greg pitched for his heist. Would you ever be open to collaborating?
That's cool.
And my response was what any screenwriter's response would be, was like, well, how much? How much are you going to pay me? And but then, we got in a room together, and part of it was because we were working on something that wasn't ours. And Greg and I just had a ball. We had a
That's
ball
awesome.
working together.
You guys hit it off.
Yeah, and we became like legit friends after that. And one of the things was, then we didn't work again together for years. We were just friends. We'd hang out and do stuff. And I have the honor and privilege of being an early reader for Orphan X. So I know what's going to happen like 2 years before everyone else does. And I'm not telling a soul. I'm not worried about Greg, but Evan scares the shit out of me. So I'm gonna just
awesome.
So I can't tell. And then what happened is I was writing a script. I'd come up with this concept, Sweet Girl, and I'd written the first act, and I sent it off to Greg, and I'm like, "What do you think of this?" And it was the first act, and then it was like a second act, third act, like notes of what I was going to do in the second and third act.
Cool.
And he said, can we meet for lunch? I don't want to say this over the phone. I'm like, yeah.
And you're like, oh, he hates it.
Yeah. And I came in and he sat down and was like, we're having a lunch. He's like, so here's the deal. The first act's brilliant. I think it's really brilliant.
That's cool.
Where you go with it from here, we'll turn it into, another brilliant Philip Eisner writing sample that's too dark to get made.
Interesting.
It's too brutal. And you're making choices. I'm like, cool, so what do you do? And then he pitched me a version of my idea that kept all the themes there with this completely different twist. And I was like, wow, that's really, and I was like,
awesome.
Wow, that was good.
It's a good friend.
That's great. And it's commercial. And then I paused and I'm like, do you want to write this with me? And he looked at me to the side and I'm like, here's the deal. I know me. I will take your idea. I will start writing this. And the story's going to curve all the way back around to what I was doing. It's like, because what you're pitching me is different enough that there are elements here that are not instinctual to me.
Yeah.
And his response was, I was really hoping you would say that because I think this would be a lot of fun for us to work on together.
Aww.
And that was it. And that became Sweet Girl. And we got it to a producer who got it to Jason Momoa. And that was a slam dunk at Netflix. So
and Jason Momoa is attached to it now?
Yeah.
Oh, that's amazing. It's been shot?
It's in post at,
oh, wow.
Oh, yeah. It's in post at Netflix.
So I had Greg on the show, and actually that's how we got to meet, luckily. And I saw the Book of Henry and actually really enjoyed the Book of Henry. I thought it was a great film on how to blend different genres together and then kind of break the mold. Yeah, no, absolutely. And it's one of those things where, when you sing it, it's like this brilliant satire, and it's a satire on Spielberg films, and people were evaluating it as a Spielberg film or just as a straight homage to Spielberg films. And it's like, not getting it. But Greg actually told me an anecdote from that, which just really drives home to me the role of screenwriting and the role that you play in the process of making a film. So I guess in his original script, which he wrote years and years ago, there was like this big speech, and it's the speech, I think, that the mom, it's either before the boy dies, it's before she chooses not to kill. So that's at the end. So it's like expositional where she's like, you're just a kid.
Yeah, it's exactly. But it was one of those things where it was a speech that really encapsulated her entire character, her relationship with Henry, all of this. And it was in the original script. And then he works on it with the director, and they're doing drafts and drafts. But always this speech gets worked and reworked and reworked until it's shining with a T. And then he's on set, and they're filming it. And Naomi Watts,
brilliant,
right? Naomi Watts does the scene, and she does the speech, and it's perfect. It's better than you imagined. It's everything you want it to be. And when she finishes the speech, this look comes over her face, and she glances away. And then she glances back to her eye line. And the director leans over and goes like, well, we don't need the speech anymore. And the speech is not in the film.
Oh, he just wanted the moment.
Well, no, the director didn't know that he just wanted the moment, but it's one of those things that sometimes, and it's like if the speech wasn't there, the moment wouldn't be there.
Makes sense.
But sometimes all you need, but it's like to get to some of these things takes dialogue and construction and all of these bits. But then when you're putting the film together, it's like, you don't necessarily need it. I mean, Morgan Freeman's notorious for going through his scripts going, I can do that with a look. I don't need to do that. I don't have to say that. You know?
Well, that's where the magic happens. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
So for somebody who says that you have to have a pretty big ego to work, obviously it's incredibly self-reflective to know you that well, to be able to be open to receiving those notes and then inviting him to work with you on notes is absolutely incredible. And I'm really excited to see this thing.
Yeah, thank you. I mean, I think one of the things that happens is that if you're confident in your ability as a writer, you're able to put your focus. It's not on you; it's on the work. Everything's on the work. I also work with. I actually have 2 writing partners because I'm a whore, and
that caught me off guard.
Sorry.
Good. Go ahead.
Well, I'm a whore because you you get paid. If you get paid, you're a whore.
Right.
So it's like,
I got it.
It's one of those awful things. People always go like, when I'm teaching, people are like, well, I don't want to sell my vision. I don't want to sell out. And I'm like,
that's the point.
We're talking about screenplays. Why are you here? You're here to sell out. You're here to sell your craft.
Yeah.
Any writer is getting paid to do something they would do for free.
It's true,
right?
Man.
So
yeah.
It's this thing of you're here to sell your craft. You're not looking to get married, and you're not looking to give it away for free.
Yeah.
You're looking to be a well-kept courtesan who's paid for their time. You're paid for the time to do your craft. That's the goal.
Philip.
Anyway.
Thank you for being on with us. This has been an absolutely incredible conversation. I really appreciate all of your insights and honest takes on the industry and some amazing tips. And it's just been absolutely incredible, sir. Thank you so much.
Absolutely.
Thanks for listening. If you enjoyed this episode, please subscribe and share in your social media where you can tag us at The Successful Screenwriter.